out. Come on. Mark. Mark. Los Gatos, Paul, 13. He's making mild attempts with his knife to cut his neck. He's standing in 7-Eleven. Mark, come on. Put it down. M10, be advised. Mark's in there with his knife, holding it at me. Taking little swipes at his neck.
So excited for this.
You might want to. Never mind, I've got more units here.
Yeah? Wait, what?
Mark, stop! Mark, stop!
11 and 12 to 97. I copy. Mark is inside the business.
Drop the knife! I'm gonna tase him.
Sam 10, copy, starting fire, and one at gunpoint.
Please don't hurt me. Please don't hurt me.
Mark.
I don't want to die like this anymore.
Mark got the left word code 4, 10-15. 3 Paul 11, copy, code 4, 10-15 with 1. Do we still need medics?
Warrior versus Guardian. The video you just saw was captured on one of our officers' body-worn cameras. And I showed it to you this afternoon just to try to have you get a little bit of an idea what it's like to be a police officer. And there's a new term that's kind of caught fire in the last year, and it's carried a lot of discussion in police work, in police administration, and it's warrior versus guardian. And so what we're starting to see as you all know, there's been a lot of critical incidents throughout the United States, and law enforcement is being critiqued, and rightfully so. And what we want to be able to do is to do a better job. And so some of the discussion, again, has come up about, as a police officer, should our mindset be a warrior or should it be a guardian? So when I think about it for myself, I think about what is a warrior as it relates to police work. Well, a warrior is probably somebody who's going to escalate a situation, who's going to command people, and who's going to force compliance. Where a guardian is somebody who's going to de-escalate that situation, communicate with the public, and hopefully gain compliance. And it's really interesting as you deal with a lot of different people when you are a police officer, you can really tell who has been treated properly by the police, and there's sometimes where you can tell who the citizens who had negative contact with the police. And it was late one night, I was in Los Gatos, I made a car stop. It was just for a vehicle code violation, it wasn't gonna be a big deal. But as I approached the vehicle, I noticed that there was two Hispanic males in the driver's seat and passenger seat. The driver had his hands locked on the steering wheel, and the passenger had his hands pressed up against the dashboard. And I looked in, I was like, what are you guys doing? This isn't a big deal, your tail lights are out. Can I see some driver's license and registration? And they were really afraid. I mean, they weren't playing around. I mean, they were really scared. And so once I got their driver's license and got to talk to them a little bit, they were from the Central Valley, and that was their experience with law enforcement, is when they got pulled over in the middle of the night, that if they didn't be very careful about where their hands were and follow commands very directly, that contact would probably turn maybe not so well for them. So a little bit about me. I started in law enforcement in 1996. I started a little bit late in life and had some friends that were police officers. So I tested for a large agency, and I was fortunate enough to get picked up by that agency. And it was a really good agency, but it was different. There was something for me that I was missing. We were super busy. We would go call to call. We would really almost have a little bit of an us versus them mentality when it came to police work. If we went to a call and there was a crime, we would handle it. But if it was a quality of life issue, if there was maybe some counseling that was needed, maybe if there was some help that those individuals were just looking for, we were busy. And it wasn't the culture. Culture was, you need to go to the next call, or your sarge was going to be wondering why you're taking so long at each call. So in the year 2000, I had a friend who was working for the Gatos-Monte Sereno Police Department. And I kind of was sharing with them that I really wasn't happy where I was working at. And he said, hey, you need to come to Los Gatos. So he brought me in. I came on a ride-along. I met some of the officers and met a couple of the sergeants. And I really recognized that every department's different. And even though there weren't the words warrior versus guardian then, this agency really had officers and supervisors that treated the public with respect, and they were kind, and they really were guardians. And so I was really fortunate enough to get hired. I came over, I lateraled over here to Los Gatos, and I spent the next 3 years on patrol. I really just kind of tell you that dichotomy just so you can see the difference, or at least try to explain the difference in each agency and the philosophy and the culture of the agencies. So I spent about 3 years, like I said, in patrol, became a field training officer, and then there was a specialty assignment that was opening up, and then Chief Frisbee, who's the chief now, he was going to come out of that assignment, and it was really a hand-picked assignment, and it was a specialized team, and it was headed by the Department of Justice, and it was overseen by the Bureau of Narcotics Enforcement. So that team investigated high-level drug trafficking, gangs, murder for hire, any type of violent crime that the task force would be asked to handle. And so when I was first asked to go into that task force, I didn't want to go. I thought, man, this thing, I'm going to be with a bunch of meat eaters again, for lack of better words. I'm going to be with a bunch of warriors, and that's really not my style of policing. So the chief talked to me, and he said, it's not what you think. That you have to be able to talk to people in this task force. You're not going to be able to be successful being an us versus them mentality. So in 2000, 2003, 2004, I went into the task force. I changed my appearance, and I started working in an undercover capacity. And it was just amazing. He was right. He was right. These guys were high speed, don't get me wrong. We were incredibly effective. And there were times that we did have to have the warrior mentality. But the only way we were successful and the way we made our cases was by developing relationships. And it may sound funny, but we were developing relationships with the suspects. If a suspect got arrested and they wanted to work their case off, they didn't want to go to jail, they would bring those suspects to us, and we would interview them and to see if there would be a match. And they needed to trust me. They needed to trust that what I was telling them that I would follow through with. And at some level, I needed to trust them as well, because the way it worked is they would introduce me into their group. They would introduce me into their friends, vouch for me, not as a police officer, as another criminal, to be honest with you. And that's how we would make our cases. So one of our a case that I'm really proud of was a prison gang case. It was the Nuestra Familia. And so the Nuestra Familia actually is the head over the Hispanic prison gangs in Northern California. And they actually have authority over the street gangs, the Norteños, in all of California. And so it took us almost a year to really infiltrate the case. There was several search warrants that were executed. And we were able to, fortunately enough, get a bunch of guns, a bunch of drugs, and put a whole bunch of people in jail. But again, the reason why I tell you this story is because when we made entry into this house, and then once everybody was secure, there was the head of the Nuestra Familia for Northern California, and I had an opportunity to talk to him. I treated him with respect. I treated him with dignity. He wanted his socks before he went to jail. He wanted his shoes. I got him all that stuff. And on the ride to jail, he started telling me things, and not things that would get him in trouble, but just kind of how their operations work. Some of the things that I just needed to understand about how they made certain deliveries and how some of their security processes. So again, it worked for me because it was a guardian type mentality. It wasn't that us versus them. Even though they were the criminals and needed to go to jail, they still needed to be treated with respect and dignity, just like any other human being. So in 2007, I came back to the police department, cleaned up, This was my commander at the Department of Justice, Bob Metzer, and he really taught me how to be a leader. He was a true servant leader. He took care of his folks. We had very few use of force incidents in the 4 years that I was on the task force, and it was really because of him, because he would really instill in us that you didn't have to be at war with people. And you had that term, war on drugs, but we didn't have to be at war with the people. They still needed to be communicated with, and they needed to be talked to in a way that we could gain their compliance. So I thought about that. How can I bring back those values to the department once I promoted? And how can I ensure that the Los Gatos-Monte Sereno Police Department would be a department that folks would respect and they wouldn't be afraid of, and that we would be guardians? So I promoted through the ranks. I became a corporal, a sergeant, detective sergeant, and then when I got promoted to the rank of captain, I was with now Chief Frisbee, and we started thinking about how we would change our hiring practices. And so what we did is we actually tied our vision to how we hire people. And so for those of you that don't know, the police department's doing 3 things. We're building a highly competent professional police department, providing traditional law enforcement services. We're building community relations, and we're engaging in community problem solving with our ultimate goal of getting to know everyone in the community. So think about that video and that ultimate goal of getting everyone to know everyone in the community. The officer knew Mark. Did you hear that? Mark, he's telling dispatch, hey, Mark's got a knife. Mark, put down the knife. And you can hear his voice escalate as Mark comes out. And it turned out he didn't tase Mark. It kind of sounds like it on the video. Mark complied. Mark dropped the knife. And if you watch how the officers took Mark into custody, I'm just really proud of them. There's no excessive force. They didn't have to tase him. They knew who he was. And that made a difference. I truly believe that made a difference. If we in police work, if we can see and join our community and not be an us versus them type police, if we can be a guardian of the community, it's going to work for us. I really believe it's going to work for us, and not just here in Los Gatos. I think it can work in the larger agencies. I think it can work in the larger agency it came from. So I'll tell you another story about how we did this in our selection process. It's a success story, so I'm bragging a little bit. But Michelle Viviano was one of our interns. She came to us to the police department while she was in college, and she volunteered. She volunteered in our records department, and she did a great job. And we saw the way she interacted with people at the front counter, and she just had a way about her that was very easygoing, and she had that ability. And she wanted to get into the police work, so we hired her as a community service officer. And the community service officers actually work alongside the police, and they go to calls. They'll take cold calls for service. So in other words, when I say cold calls, it's say a burglary or a theft where there's no suspects, there's no suspect information. She just needs to document the report. And then an opening came up in the library. The library wanted to have some type of presence, and we partnered with the library, and we put Michelle in the library as a CSO. And some of you may know her, and that's a picture with some of the students, I think from Los Gatos High School, and Michelle while she was in the library. She finished her degree. She went through a bunch of oral board testings, the technical testing, the chief's oral, captain's oral, and we decided to hire her. And we don't do that very often here. We hire people, but we mostly hire laterals because it's very expensive to put somebody through the academy, and there's a 6-month training time before she can even come back to us and then get into our field training. But I'm really happy to announce that yesterday, Chief Frisbee swore Michelle in as our newest police officer with the Los Gatos-Monte Sereno Police Department. And we did that because she has that capability of communicating with people, holding people accountable, but still being able to be that guardian, having that guardian mentality. It really doesn't stop there. One of the other things that Chief Frisbee did when he got appointed to the position is he restructured the police department. So what we did was We promoted 2 new lieutenants. We had some retirements. We had the ability now to have 3 new sergeants and 3 new corporals. But when we did our promotional testing, we really focused on, and now the word warrior and guardian has been discussed. And so we asked every one of these supervisors, are you a warrior or a guardian? And each and every one answered it, and I can't say it's right or wrong because it's controversial throughout the United States, but for us in this department, we want our officers, we want our supervisors to be guardians. We want them to wear this badge with the respect and the thought processes that we are here, and it's an old term, to serve the community, but we have to do it in a way that we're here to protect the community. The last part that we take into consideration in our warrior guardian is our training. We have to make sure we train like guardians. And so this next slide is a little bit of fun. It's somebody who you may or may not recognize because when he was in this video, he was also working for a task force and at times in an undercover capacity.
Put your knee on him so he's not moving. And then all you do is, oh, mother. That's a second. That was about 1 second. Anybody just want to try?
So Officer David Gregg, been with the police department probably for close to 20 years. Just a couple of years ago, he said, hey, I want to be a school resource officer. And we do like we do every position in the police department. It's competitive and you test for it. And so he came in and he really won us over. He's an amazing man. He's a true guardian. And the reason why I said that, the things that he brought to us, and we said, what do you want to accomplish in your time? What do you want to accomplish? What do you want to do for the school? What are some of your goals? And he said, during my time at the school, I want to make sure I don't lose a single student in an auto accident. I don't want to lose a single student because of a drug overdose. I don't want to lose a single student because they took their own lives. That's huge. That's a police officer. That's a school resource officer. Not that he doesn't care about holding people accountable and enforcing the law. That's important, don't get me wrong. But to have a school resource officer with a guardian mentality that really wants to make sure that the students are going to be safe and have an incredible experience and graduate and go on to college and work and whatever they decide to do was really another, I guess, win for us as a police department and how we think about things. So I've talked to you a little bit about Warrior versus Guardian. There is a lot of information about it now on the internet. If you care to take a look, there's some things under procedural justice. It's really a movement that's sweeping police work. It'll also talk about Warrior versus Guardian mentality. And I say it's controversial because there are some police officers and some command staff that think that if we're too much of a guardian, we're not going to be safe. That the police have to have somewhat of a warrior mentality. And there's times that they're going to have to do that, and we're going to have that warrior mentality. But I think for the most part, that our first thought process should be a guardian. So in closing, I think I'd like to show you, or I am going to show you, our future guardians in police work. It's my grandkids, Jaden and Devin. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. He's awesome.